Hi, I'm Mary Wing Soares, and today with me is our Superintendent, Scott Liberty. Thank you so much for joining me.
Thanks for having me.
Yep. And we're here to talk about the budget. I don't think that this can be talked about enough before the election, before the deliberative session first in February, but then the election in March, because we want as many people to know as much information as they can about what's on here.
Right.
Right?
Yep, absolutely.
So we've been through the budget hearings, and you have a final number now.
We do.
And
we do.
Of course, laws have changed this year with what you can include in the default budget compared to what you can include in, what has to be included in the superintendent, now the school board budget.
Yes.
Right?
Right.
So.
Yep. The calculation of the default budget really is last year's numbers plus any contractual obligations that you have going forward. One of the biggest changes was that the numbers that are approved for individual contracts must be the numbers that the voters have actually approved, which brings us back to last year's numbers.
Right.
And the example that we've been using with lots of folks is in other situations in previous years, something like the bus contract.
Mm-hmm.
Bus contract increases each year by a modest amount, and we had always, because we had a long-term contract, we're able to factor in the increase of the bus contract. Beginning this year, we're not able to do that. So the amount that actually goes to the default budget was last year's contract number. Now we're under contract for the amount that's up this year. So if the default budget were to be the budget that passes, we will have to find that money in other line items in order to make that up. We're still obligated to pay the increase.
Sure.
But we're not able to calculate that into our default budget.
But so now do you have, though, a, because I know you just made a contract with, or you just went into, negotiated a contract with a new bus company, correct?
Same bus company for our general education buses. And what we're doing is our special education buses are now going to be included with the general education buses. Same company. Previously, we had used two different companies for each of those.
And it's a 10-year contract, isn't it?
It is a 10-year contract, yep.
So how are you going to, is there a warrant article that talks about that?
There is not, and I'll tell you why. Because we are mandated to provide transportation for students, we can't necessarily put that on a warrant article, because if it were to fail, then we can't offer transportation for students.
So it
the
has
law
to be
says we have to provide transportation, so it's included in the general fund budget.
Okay, so that's one more reason why it's important for folks to vote for the general fund budget, not the default budget, because of that, because you have to provide, and if you don't have that money, you have to take it from someplace else.
We would do that, right.
Right. And I know in years past, the school board has said, okay, so if you had to take it from someplace else, where would you take it from?
Right.
Did you give them a list this year? Did they ask for it?
We did give them a list. We tried not to, itemize it to a degree where we got right down to individual lines and dollars. And the reason why we didn't get to quite that level of detail is because there are a lot of pieces that are still in flux. As you know, the budget that we're developing is for the 2019-20 school year.
Right.
We've still got 6 months left of this school year, so we're really 18 months ahead.
Right.
There are a lot of factors that could still come into that. Things like staff turnover is always one of the biggest issues. And also, as we sit and watch the weather forecasts, something like a major snowstorm and snow removal can be extremely expensive. So things like that come up, and they'll impact our fund balance for the end of the year, which would then in turn.
So snow removal is in the school's budget as well as in the town's budget?
Correct.
Okay.
Yep.
And because we're responsible for our facilities?
Yes.
Okay.
Yep.
All right. So the budget, the delta between the two budgets was reduced at this last budget meeting?
Yes. Yes. The last round of reductions made by the school board have brought about a differential between the general fund and proposed and the default budget of about $458,000.
All right. And when, they always talk about how much that is as far as pennies on the dollar, pennies on your tax bill.
Right.
What is $500,000 on your tax bill, do you know?
It's about 25 cents per million, so yeah, for $500,000, it's about 12 and a half cents on the tax rate.
Okay, so the difference between one budget and the other is 12 cents, about 12 and a half
Give or
cents.
take, yeah, we actually do calculate that out. It's in the public packet. We actually calculate the cost impact on of the total on a $300,000 and $400,000 home. That's actually in the public packet.
Right.
So.
Well, and so when we will see that at the deliberative session, which is
Yes.
February 8th?
February, Friday night, the 8th, I
The
believe.
8th,
that
right,
sounds
Friday night. And it's always at the high school cafeteria, so we hope to fill up that room.
Yes, no doubt.
You can find out a lot of good information about it and about everything that's going on. Okay, so I know that you don't have nearly as many articles as the town size. The town
No.
has 27 almost, I think. So
We're-
we're up to
some reading
13.
to do, yes.
Okay, and so some of these are things that we see every single year. Things like free and reduced lunch, getting revenues for that, getting revenues for special education. Up this year, though, for the is a 3-year contract for the teachers and for
Yes.
the allied
Yeah.
health workers.
That's, Articles 3 and 4
Okay,
are up.
and so it's not just about giving the teachers raises this year. There's a
Correct.
tremendous amount of information in that contract.
Yes.
Okay, let's
Yeah,
go
there
into
are.
the nitty-gritty of the contract, because I'm
sounds
excited
good.
about it as one of the
Right,
teachers at our schools,
right.
knowing that I'm going to have 13 extra minutes, 16 extra minutes.
16, yep.
16 extra
Yep.
minutes every single day to work with our
Right.
learners is
Right.
huge for us.
It's more than a lot of people really realize until they actually see the different ways in which it can be used. And that was one of the reasons we really took our time this year with negotiations. The teachers were fantastic. We had a very, very positive dialogue, worked together to try to figure out how to make it work.
Yeah.
The day is going to be 16 minutes longer than it is right now. We're actually going to do some restructuring as a part of that at our high school. High school will also be, their lunch right now is, just because of the nature of the schedule, is longer. So we're going to rework that and actually pick up another 15 minutes of instructional time there.
Oh, wow.
So the high school schedule, as far as the instructional time, will be 31 minutes longer.
Okay, wait a minute. So you're telling me that you're going to cut like 12 minutes out of lunch or 15 minutes out of lunch?
Right now, lunch is 40 minutes long. And many of the students who are in lunch
Are complaining that it's too long?
They actually will go to the library and go get extra help and do that kind of thing. And we were...
Man, I've been selling the high school for years to my kids, saying, when you get to the high school, you get a 40-minute lunch. No? Oh, they're going to be so mad at me.
There are some upsides, though.
Right.
I think we both
Right.
know that they'll enjoy on that one. It's really, it was really necessary when we looked at, as you know, the calendar for the state of New Hampshire. We're very unique in New Hampshire in lots of ways, but and we're proud of them. One of which is we calculate the minimum length of our school year in days and hours.
Right.
Right? The high school in grades 6 through 12, it's a 180-day calendar, but what the state really uses as their metric is hours. And it has to be instructional hours. You can't count lunch.
Right.
So right now, our high school was right at 990 hours,
Okay.
which is what you need for a school year. We wanted to be higher than that.
Sure.
So part of what we did was we took a look at how we might be able to leverage the different elements of a schedule with a lot of help from the teachers, and we came up with that as one of the solutions, because the middle and elementary schools are actually a little higher because their lunches are
Shorter.
25 minutes instead of 40.
24.
24. I took one away. Well, I added one on, actually.
Yeah.
But their lunches are shorter, so the number of instructional hours that they have is a little higher.
Right.
So what we're able to do is, by balancing that out amongst the 3 buildings, we've increased the number of instructional hours that we have for the year.
That's nice.
So it'll all be well over the minimum at this point.
Right.
Right.
And so the good news for parents,
We have actually had a lot of questions and comments from parents about snow days, and that's something that we've struggled with for a long time. I know a lot of districts around us have used the hour calculation to be able to figure out makeup on snow days. We've always kind of resisted doing that because we really didn't want to sacrifice instructional time.
And we don't really either. As teachers, I can tell you right
Right.
now, we don't either.
Yeah, no one wants to see that just sort of become an excuse,
Right.
you know, a few extra minutes to just, okay, we won't
Right.
have to give that up. One of the things that we did as a part of this negotiations process for the bargaining agreement was we came up with the idea of, well, we are now going to be considerably over the limit, the minimum number of hours by adding that time into the middle of the year. In exchange for that, what we said was we are going to be able to forgive the first 5 snow days of the school year without adding them into late
Right.
June.
And what I love about this is that if there are no snow days,
We are actually going to have a lot of extra school. I don't think that the students will like that much.
well, but I don't think
yeah.
they'll realize it. If
It's
June
true, yeah.
13th is our date that we are going to get out, we're
Right.
going to get out June 13th regardless of if there's 5 or less snow days.
If there are 5 or fewer, we will be able to hold to
Right.
the end of the school year.
Right.
And the thing that we talked a lot about in the process is the time that we're adding in is quality time. It's in the middle of the year
Right.
when we know those longer periods of instruction are going to be well used. And the elementary teachers are very excited that we're adding in a 15-minute writing period into the day. So it's an actual period that's going
Right.
to add instructional time.
Right.
So we both know, and in my earlier career, I was a high school English teacher, and I can tell you that when it's June 24th, and you've got a room full of high school students, and you're trying to get them to hang in, and just we just got to read a little bit more
Right.
Shakespeare.
Right.
You don't have their full attention.
Right.
So what we decided was it was really worth it for us to be able to build up our instructional time during the school year and really get a lot more benefit out of that.
All right. So not only will there be extra minutes in the day
Yep.
and a change at the high school, the
Yep.
teachers are also going to be working for an extra day under this contract.
Yes. One of the things that we talked a lot about was the need for additional professional development time. As you know, the demands on teachers as far as what they need to know, it goes far and beyond the day-to-day pedagogy and lesson planning and that sort of thing. Now we're asking much more of our teachers as far as what they need to know about technology. We're asking them to work with increasingly diverse learners in different learning challenges. So what we all felt sitting around the table like this was an opportunity for us to add in some more professional development time. So we added on another day to the teachers' year. It went from 187 to 188
Right.
days. What we've done in the past is, in this past year was an example of this. Normally we have 4 days at the startup of school, but if there's an election year, we'll take one of those days, we'll move it into November, and we'll have 3. And then what that does is that compresses everything because we administrative types, we're still trying to get our training in
Sure.
and the teachers need to get ready. So what we did as a part of this is we said that the beginning of school is going to be 4 days. We're going to have that no matter what. We also have the day for election day. Doesn't help us very much in November, but we really feel like it's a good use of time. Plus another thing that it does, as we saw this year with a high voter turnout in the midterm elections, we really need to try to get out of the
Right.
central campus
Right.
and make sure that the people in town have access to the high school gymnasium
Right.
for voting.
Right.
So going to help out in a lot of ways.
So there's a couple of other things on here. Is there anything else of the teacher contract that you wanted to talk about?
I think we've covered the majority of it. The one thing that I would say is that the teacher contract is Article 3. Article 4 is the Allied Health Professionals contract. And a lot of people ask us why they're separate. Allied Health Professionals are all of our nurses, occupational therapists, physical therapists, anyone who work directly with the
Speech and language as
Speech and
well?
language is also one. They work more with the health and well-being of the children. They have a different certification, they have different training, so that they're in a different association. They are wonderful people, and I will tell you what they do is they actually mirror what we do with the teacher's contract. So it
So
was
they're
a
there for
very simple
188
conversation.
days, and
Yes,
they'll be
all the
doing
same.
all the same things.
It's all the same.
I know, I mean, I work with speech and language and with occupational therapists and the nurses every single day, and I know that they do an outstanding job. And
They do.
So I'm glad to see that they're part of the same, package.
Right,
And
important part of
negotiation.
what we do.
Yep, they are. So then we have the same, this similar articles as before. As I said, the school lunch program
Right.
and the money that we receive from the federal government for special education.
That's actually probably a good thing for us to point out.
Okay,
And we do that every year. Article
Right.
6 is the school lunch program and federal projects article. All that is an article that says the town gives us permission to receive the funds.
Mhm.
That means we can take the money. There is no tax impact whatsoever. And in fact, what a lot of people don't understand is if they vote no on that article, and that article were not to pass, we would actually have to come up with the appropriations out of our general fund budget.
right,
So it's money that is due to the community from the federal government. It's just as a part of the regulations with the federal government, we have to approve receiving it.
right.
And we still have people who will come in and vote no on it because I think they think it comes from our tax impact. It comes from our federal taxes,
Right.
and it's due to the community.
And what I've heard people complain about, or not complain about, but comment about, is that while there's no estimated local tax impact,
Right.
you have already paid this. You've already
Yes.
paid this to the federal government, and the federal government's just giving it back to your community.
That is correct.
So,
Yep.
it is ridiculous not to vote yes.
It's hard to come up with a reason why
Yeah.
a no vote would be appropriate there.
Right.
The money has been collected and it is due
Right.
to our community.
Exactly.
And we need to make sure it comes back.
And so then we have some special articles that have to do
We
with school building maintenance. That's something we've seen before.
Yes, the trust
Um,
funds, yep.
Right. The Equipment Capital Reserve Fund.
Mhm.
But then we have a new fund that we're trying to establish for technology.
Yes. The Building Maintenance Expendable Trust and the Capital Reserve Fund Trust were established years ago. And I think it was a very wise move on the part of the district and the town to come up with this kind of an approach. What that does is by maintaining those trust funds, it's like a savings account. So what it does is when we take minor projects or major pieces of equipment, it's time for us to buy those or replace those, these funds are there and they smooth it out. So we don't have to come back and say, okay, we've got, we have to buy new classroom equipment this year,
Right.
so we have to ask for an additional amount of money. We're saving for a rainy day
Right.
there, and we're expending it as necessary. To that point, we really felt like it was time for us to take a similar approach with the technology infrastructure. We really, the technology that we have in our building, we're incredibly well supported by the community. Obviously, technology is important. If you look at the economic development going on around town, there are a lot of businesses, a lot of industry coming into our town and offsetting our tax base, which is, as Kevin and his folks had talked about, such a benefit to the community. We have to make sure that the education that we offered is commensurate with
Right.
that kind of
Yeah.
kind of an atmosphere. And really the infrastructure within a building is a lot more complicated than maybe it was 10 or 20 years
Sure.
ago.
We
There's
need to-
wiring and switches and hubs, and there are all kinds of, and I'm throwing out words that I could probably point to a picture of them, but I don't really know how they work.
Right.
But we have people who work for us who know very well how they work, and what they're saying is it's really no different than maintaining the rest of the infrastructure of the building. That you do need to upgrade these switches from time to time. You do need to upgrade the capacity of the
Sure.
cabling and that sort of thing. We'd
So-
like to establish that trust, that capital reserve fund, so that we can do the same thing.
And the money, though, would only be if there's excess in the budget from this year,
This would
correct?
come, right. We actually would raise and appropriate $275,000 this year to establish it. But in subsequent years, we would do the same.
Okay,
We would do
so,
the same thing that we do
so
with the others.
this will have a tax impact on that?
It does, yeah.
Yeah,
It actually
12
notes
cents?
that on the warrant.
Well, it's not 12 cents.
7, yeah.
It's 7 now.
7 cents.
Right, because
Right.
it was originally, recommended that we do $500,000, and knowing that we want the teacher contract to pass and the ally contract to pass, And your budget to pass, which I think
Correct.
are hugely important things.
Right.
To get this started,
Mhm.
it's been reduced to 275,
That's
right?
correct.
So.
Yep.
All right, and, I'm disappointed because personally I would have voted for $500,000,
Right.
knowing, working in the schools and knowing the
Mhm.
need. But I appreciate that anything is better than zero, and that's what we have right now.
We're grateful for the opportunity to get that fund set
Yeah.
up and start to work.
Exactly.
And we'll hopefully folks will see
Right.
it the same way.
Right?
Mhm.
And then the Special Education Trust Fund.
Yes.
So this is something, because we have such a diverse population right now coming into our schools,
Mhm.
we never know whether or not we are going to have to outplace somebody.
That's right. That's
And
right.
so this trust fund allows us to have funds there in case.
We do have, as you know, we have in-district programs for many of our students with disabilities and
Mhm.
special needs. However, there are some students who are really beyond our ability to help and to serve. What we find is that at times when we encounter a situation like that, students who have those kinds of needs tend to need very expensive programs.
Sure.
They need very intensive supports. And this fund does ensure that if we had a situation like that, that we would be able to provide for those children as we
Right.
are required to do, and without a major, if you have $100,000 or $150,000, which is not unthinkable,
Mhm.
program, that could really wreak havoc on your budget.
So
we
this is
save on it.
only the second or the third time that we've been funding this?
That's actually been going on. That has been in place for quite some time.
Has it, at $50,000?
Yeah, it was established in 2002, but I
Okay.
know there have been times where
All right.
they've had to draw on it.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, it's good, again, it's a savings
Yeah.
account.
Yeah.
It's something that's important to have when we need it.
Exactly.
As Kevin was explaining earlier, if you need this money and you don't have this money, you have to go to the court and get a special election, and
right.
have to have a special election, and it's just such rigmarole. It's so much smarter to have the savings account and to be able to use the money when
Right.
you need it.
Yep.
And then the security manager position.
Right.
Now, it's not called that
We
anymore.
have changed the name to a security systems
Right.
technician. There was some misunderstanding around
Right.
that, and we wanted to be clear about that. The board heard that feedback and made that
Sure.
change. It is a technician level position.
Mhm.
We're very fortunate in our schools to have a number of different security features. We have a number if memory serves me correctly, over 500 security cameras throughout the
Mhm.
school district. We have access points, card access points. We have security vestibules in all 6 of the buildings.
Mhm.
There are, magnetic door locks. There are all kinds of other features as well that have a lot, that put quite a strain on our building maintenance folks. We do have an electrician who works for us, and between the electrician and some of the other maintenance technicians, it's begun to take up a larger and larger chunk of their time.
Mhm.
So we finally reached a point of critical mass where we said, okay, it's time for us to do that, and time for us to add this position. And so we will be looking for somebody. We hope if the voters support this, we'll be looking for someone with a background in whether it's an electrician or someone with a technology, a security technology background.
So are you able to explain in the warrant article itself, the $92,000 is not the salary?
Right. We aren't able to articulate that in here, but we absolutely are going to go over that at deliberative session,
Okay.
and we're going to make sure that we get the word out. That is loaded. That is a loaded cost.
Right, so
It's an hourly position, and there might be some overtime,
right,
but it is certainly the salary won't be that high. That
Right.
includes health benefits and insurance, and also things like FICA
right.
and
Okay.
Social Security.
So
Right.
people, I hope people will understand, although you may have a whole plethora of people, applying for a $92,000 position, even though it's
I
not
can
that.
imagine. Yeah.
But it's a loaded figure.
Yes.
And it
that's
has
right.
to be, you have to do that so that
Mhm.
you'd have the funds in the budget for all of the things that you need.
Right,
Right.
right.
So, you know, the one that I have the hardest time with is the transfer of the former SAU office to the town of Londonderry.
Mhm.
Because if the voters vote for that,
Mhm.
is it, do you know, is it their plan that they're going to take it down? And are they going to build something else there?
I actually haven't been a part of the discussions at the town level to talk about what they
You
would
should have asked
intend to
Kevin
do
while he
for
was
it.
here.
You know, our thought on our end is that that is town land and it's town property. And they, you know, if you go back to, you know, the mid-'80s when we first moved in there was a very positive partnership that was drawn up between the town and the schools.
Right.
And you know, we coexisted quite well for a long time. I actually missed being able to go next door and see Kevin and his staff. But that said, at this point, it's not. We're not using it for that purpose. We really felt like it was the right thing to do to put it before the voters and
Right.
ask them what they would like to do. It's their land,
Right.
so we'd like to ask them.
I mean, it's all the same pocket.
True.
We
Yep.
live in this town.
Yep.
We have two different governments, but it's all the same pocket. It's all the same tax
Right.
money.
Right.
When the building was built, was it built with town or school money?
I believe that the structure itself was school. It was
Right.
The school put it up.
Right.
And yeah, if memory serves me correctly,
Right.
I know I'll be corrected if I'm wrong. on that,
Sure.
but yeah.
So, I mean, as a citizen, I would want to know what's going to happen, what the town, the plan the town has. And I'd also like to know if it passes on one side and it doesn't pass on the other, what the consequence of that is.
From what I understand, it needs to pass on both sides in order
For it to
for it to happen.
Right.
You know, as far as the town goes, you know, for all of us, I'm sure just as we look forward to the next
Right.
month and a half or so, 2 months, being able to get our message out and get people to understand, we hope, a little bit better what we put together. I'm sure the town will do that too.
Right.
I'm sure
they will
we'll hear
too.
more about it.
Yeah. Is there anything else you wanted to talk about today?
I think we've hit all of the high points.
Right.
Yep.
It's not a really long, it won't be a very long ballot.
No.
But it's got a lot of, you know, important things on it.
It is.
And so I would, you know, encourage everyone to take the time to find out. If you have any questions, you can certainly call the superintendent's office.
Yes, anytime.
We have only one position on the school board that's open.
We do.
We
Yep.
have the school board clerk position,
Mhm.
the district moderator, and the district treasurer. And those are all 3-year positions.
Right.
So, you know, we encourage people to come out and sign up and run. We want people to become involved. And I know a lot of people, they did Leadership Londonderry again this year for the
Yes.
first time after a few years. So perhaps we'll
Great
see
group.
some people that will sign up for both sides, town or school.
Mhm.
Thank you so much for coming. I appreciate
Thanks
your
for having
time.
me.
And we'll see you again next month.
Sounds good.
All right, well, after we will be after the deliberative session, so we'll have, you know, hopefully good news on all of these articles, that they pass the muster of those who came to deliberate. February 8th is the
Right.
deliberative session for the school. February 9th, the following morning on Saturday, is the deliberative session for the town. So please join us for both things. This has been Mary Wing Soares, and this is Transparency in Government. Thank you for joining me.